Welcome, gamers, to Exalted Interview number 1! Are you tired of boring Google Hangouts interviews? Well, here, we are going to interview and cut deep with RPG designers! Today, we're interviewing Alex from Blackoath Entertainment! If you want to skip ahead or if you've watched this video already, skip to these time codes. Thanks for watching, and roll the intro! Welcome everyone to Exalted Interviews number 1. We're here with Alex.
Hi everybody, nice to be here. Hi Levi.
Hello, it is great to be talking to you.
Likewise.
So, for the viewers who don't know, can you tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so as you said, my name is Alex. I'm based here in Madrid, Spain, and I'm the person behind Blackoath Entertainment, which is starting to put out a few mostly solo RPG games via Exalted Funeral.
What is your history with RPGs?
Yeah, well, I guess my first experience with an RPG will be, I must have been around 10 probably. It must have been in 1990. So it was the basic Dungeons & Dragons. I remember I was at a sleepover at my cousins, and they just had this box with Dungeons & Dragons. And of course, I mean, I didn't know what an RPG was. I don't even think the terminology was in their head either. They just said, let's play this game. And sure, I remember it had this, I just can't remember which edition it was. Maybe it was some weird Spanish edition, because I could swear it was in Spanish. And it was this box with cutout figures. I mean, like you had all the different classes and cutouts, and some very old school.
Yeah.
So I remember we played one game and I didn't really get it. I mean, I tell you, I must have been 10, 11.
Right.
And fast forward to when I was about 12, 13 maybe. And then some friend in school, he really got me and some other friends into actual role playing. We started with the first edition of Lord of the Rings, the Ice Crown Enterprise, I think is the IC edition, and we played a lot of that. And then a lot of Call of Cthulhu, of course, and then we got very hardcore into Vampire, the first edition. Of course, I'm talking all the first editions because you
were there for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting what was as it was being released, except Dungeons & Dragons. Of course, I was the 70s. I was not even born back then. I'm from my first experiences. Maybe it's like that would be like the second wave of role playing when it started to a bit explode more, right. Branch out into other stuff like. Yeah, I told you, we got into Vampire. We played a lot of Vampire. and then it just started mixing with other, I don't know, like Magic the Gathering. When it came out, I had all the beta cards of Magic, the first cards. I mean, cards that now cost thousands. Of course, I sold them without knowing what they were. The typical mistakes, and now I hit my head against the wall.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, a lot of money. So, I don't know, Warhammer stuff, you just branch out from that.
Right. Yeah. That's a cool breadth of experience. So what kind of stuff do you do outside of RPGs then?
Yeah, well, on a daily basis, I work. I'm a publisher, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I publish books, and then hobbies. Lately, it's just writing and more writing.
Yeah.
RPGs, but when I can, I play music. That's always been my number one passion, actually.
Cool. What do you play, or what do you like to do?
It's mostly metal. Yeah, it's black metal
Metal.
mostly.
Nice. Okay.
Even if that doesn't look like I cut my hair recently, a
Uh,
couple of years ago. But yeah,
oh, did you have the metal hair?
yeah, my whole life, most of my life, I had hair down to my waist almost. So
That is awesome.
it's
Ah,
just, it was getting actually too heavy. So
yeah.
I decided it was literally hurting.
Yep.
So, and
I've
I
heard that.
got tired after, I'm telling you, I don't know, 20 something years with long hair. I just said, okay, I guess I can cut it. Even though it's like part of your identity, it's a difficult thing to do as a
Mm,
metalhead.
yep. Dang.
But yeah, so mostly music and writing.
Well, I'm sorry we missed your hair. What instruments do you play?
All,
Really?
I mean, from metal band, yeah, guitars, bass, vocals, drums, a bit of
Nice.
keyboards. Yeah,
Cool.
out of necessity because I've always been a do-it-yourself guy. So you end up with bands, people are not serious,
Sure. Yeah.
and then you end up trying to learn the instrument because you're missing a band member. And
Mm-hmm.
at this point in my life, most of the people I was playing with, they're just with families, and most of the people that they don't have the dedication to music. So I just recorded it for myself. I'm solo one man band. That's mostly. I mean, I have some stuff I collaborate with people, but most of my stuff is just me. So
There you go. That's cool. You're multi-talented. Um,
well,
eh,
multi-dabbled. I don't know about
um,
talent.
what was the first when I think of when I picture game designers, I usually or like people who are writing games, I usually picture them as the game masters. What's the first thing that you ran?
Well, I was actually just being one of the players until I must have been, I don't know, until I got, yeah, I bought, I remember for my, I don't know, maybe I was 14 years old. I got my parents to buy me a copy of Stormbringer, the Chaosium. I don't know how you pronounce it in
Yeah, yeah,
English.
Chaosium.
Yeah. So that game, man, oh my God, that really got me into darker stuff. I mean, I already started with Call of Cthulhu and Vampire, of course, but these that special breed of dark fantasy that Stormbringer and all the Moorcock universe, I mean, his
Right.
Eternal Champion books. I mean, it's just that for me, that's my DNA, and
Gotcha.
so that's when I started to really get into becoming a game master and running games, writing my own modules and adventures, and that's when I went nuts with. I mean, the game was too basic for me, so I started to just add homebrew stuff, basically map out because the game came with a map of the known world,
Mm-hmm.
so but not much more than that. Of course, I had all the supplements and stuff, but so I started to make detailed maps of every single city with all the businesses you could have.
Oh my gosh.
I had like a whole folder with maps and detailed stuff and extra rules and demons that you could summon. I don't know. I really went nuts with Stormbringer.
That is so cool.
That's the one I was really game mastering a lot. Then I don't know. I guess a bit of everything: vampire,
Mm-hmm.
werewolf. I don't know, a bit of everything afterwards.
That's awesome.
Funnily enough, I never ran Dungeons and Dragons, for example. I was always a player. I never ran a game of Dungeons and Dragons in my life.
You haven't?
No, which is like the staple for everybody. Never. I've always been the player because I had a couple of friends which were amazing game masters for Dungeons and Dragons. So they were always by default. They were always. I don't think they ever got to play a game now that I think of it because they were always the dungeon master.
Oh my
So
gosh. That
yeah,
is really funny. Huh. Well, go figure.
yeah.
So what games do you, what's the game that you enjoy playing or running the most? Because you said you do like more collaborative stuff. I feel like there's probably not someone running the game with some of the uh, games you're playing right now. Is that right? They're kind of board games, or is there someone running it?
And no, honestly, since we're doing mostly wargaming that kind of stuff. There's not really anybody running them. But from when I was running games, I would have to say Cult was my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
And I did a lot of Cult and Vampire, of course. And those are, but yeah, especially Cult. That game was really a game changer for me. That really changed my perception of the world. Even that really, really opened a lot of doors for me, intellectually speaking.
Cool.
That was. I wouldn't be who I am without that game. I out there to say.
That's really cool.
So,
did you see the did they release a new version or new?
Yeah, of course, yes. And I listened to the interviews and podcasts like Full Metal RPG, and I mean, I follow them because I really admire their work. And yeah, the new edition is just amazing.
Oh, cool!
Fantastic stuff. But yes, that's one of the milestones in gaming history in my understanding. So that I really enjoyed running that one. And Vampire is a classic, of course, for me. I don't know anything about new editions though. I just have the original one.
Right.
I don't know what they've done. I know they did some kind of apocalypse stuff, and I am really disconnected from that world. But the original was also a game changer. That gothic urban atmosphere that was just, there was Sisters of Mercy all over it. So it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
That's super.
I really loved it. Yeah.
Man.
But yeah, nowadays, unfortunately, I'm not really running anything. I hope I can change that in the near future. But for now, well, wargaming it is.
But yeah, let me know if you pick up a game of the new Cult, the new version of Cult. I want to get a taste of that. That sounds cool.
Yeah, that would be very fun to run. Honestly.
During that time running, can I hear like like one of your favorite anecdotes or like a scene or a story that you kind of hold on to, like one of your favorites?
Yeah, I guess. Well, the thing is that I was doing most of my role playing in my teens because afterwards, well, you just start going out, doing other stuff. On top of that, I left Spain. I just returned recently to Spain. I've been out of Spain for most of my life, actually. So I just started recently getting back into role playing because I just couldn't do it before. For the past decade, I haven't done any gaming at all. But before that, so all my anecdotes really come back to when I was mostly a teenager in my early 20s. And I remember it got to a point that our group, and I mean our regular group, the ones that we will play most of all Fridays and Saturdays, we were like 10 or 11 people. I mean, it was a big group.
Oh, yeah, that is a big group.
yeah, and regularly. So I remember we made a mistake, me as master, of running when we got the copy of Werewolf. First edition, of course, I'm talking about first edition. I have no idea how the rules go now. I remember there was a mechanic with like Rage or Fury, something like that. I can't remember the name exactly, which allowed the characters to basically get a free action. So we got into a combat situation with 11 people. I don't know, I think, so just action plus action plus action. I think that combat lasted like 3 hours. Wow. I mean, it was whole session just one combat. And after that, we never played again. Fuck this game. I mean, we can't. We spent the whole session in one fucking combat because I'm telling you, partially because we were 11 fucking players. Like, yeah. It was a bit nuts. And then you have the typical funny stories where you start Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Well, how it was called back then, now it's just Dungeons and Dragons. So we will start playing a session, and maybe we'll have a newcomer. And you will have, there was once, which I'll never forget, we had a huge argument because this new guy was a friend of a friend who knew the rules exactly. I mean, he studied them by memory. So the game master will be doing his thing and saying, okay, roll for this. And he will be the typical, excuse me, that's wrong. In page this, paragraph that. And really, I mean, and you could go to the page and paragraph and it will be word by what this guy said. And there was like, really, okay, don't you know the basic rule, which is the game master has the last say in? I mean, it doesn't matter if in the rule book says this is this. If the game master wants for story purposes to go in this direction, that's what we have to do. So
That's rule number one.
Yeah, so one of the stick ups for the rules and completely ruined the session for everybody. Like a yelling contest with the game master. We just call it a day after that.
Oh yeah, yeah. That'll certainly ruin the mood.
Yeah, well, that was a funny experience too. So,
so you've kind of done both sides of the spectrum. Then you've had like tables with like 11 players, but now you're writing single player RPGs. What led you to that field, that genre?
Well, the fact that I'm basically groupless right now. I mean, I have a couple of friends which we play almost every week now, but funnily enough, we don't play RPGs. We do all our gaming. All our gaming now it's tabletop. It's things like Shadows of Brimstone, or I mean, more a bit of wargaming stuff. And,
okay.
Yeah, so we moved a bit. It's mostly because of lack of time. So
yeah,
I still enjoy role playing, and I decided that if since there's a big lack of single player role playing out there, because I guess it's not easy to design a game for a single player.
Mm-hmm.
So I started mostly as hacks. I was solo hacks for myself from other stuff, and I dabble a bit in mythic and this kind of things, but it just gets too abstract. If you try to run a proper, like, I don't know, you take cult or whatever, you then take mythic and this kind of solo master tools that you have out there, it just gets too abstract for me. I need a bit of more directed narrative, I think, because at this point in my life, I don't have that much time, and I can't spend 5 hours preparing a session for myself,
right?
And then all the details, because of course you have to pre-generate a lot of stuff, all the encounters more or less, and I don't know, it's mostly like assisted writing than playing. So I just got tired. I mean, if I want to write, I write. So yeah, I just thought that there was a possibility of making a bit more structure. Maybe you lose in narrative elements, which is a pity. But it's you just have to decide whether you have a dungeon master which provides you with that narrative and direction, and I mean it can guide your story, or you have some other constraints which will sacrifice the narrative aspects, and well, I don't know, it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
I just thought that going back to your question, that since there was a lack, at least that I know of, solo RPG games out there, I decided to try it myself.
Yeah. Huh. That's. I mean, like, if there's a need for it, because, like you're saying, with
yeah, I think there's a lot of people who lack the time, and we're all. I mean, my generation is pushing 40s already, and most of them have kids, families, works that don't allow them to meet up with a group. I mean, there's a lot of obligations that take away from that group. Group experience.
But you still want to play games, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's still there. It's a fun experience. No matter you're 12 or 50, it's fun.
Right.
So I try to make my games modular also, so you can, if you have just 20 minutes one day to play, well, that's all that you have. You can have a small session for yourself and have a bit of fun, and that's it. And that's impossible otherwise. I mean, if you're depending on other people and to see if they can make it every weekend to your gaming session, I mean, it's just, some people are lucky. Me personally, I just can't in my point in life, and I know a lot of people like that. So I said, well, okay, let's try to provide a service for those people like me.
So I really kind of relate to a lot of the stuff you're saying, because I've played your game Disciples of Bone and Shadow, which, by the way, is Disciples of Bone and Shadow the first game you've put out?
Yeah, I started designing solo games actually because I don't know. I don't know if you know it. There's a game called For Against Darkness, which is also part of the DNA for Disciples for sure. And the game is very basic, very 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 basic, but it's awesome.
Cool.
So I started playing it, and I thought, okay, this game is amazing, but the setting is too old school, too simple, too basic. I think I can improve upon this. So I started working on a hack, which I call For Against the Void, which was more space horror stuff, and I don't know. I took it because the basic game is classic fantasy,
Yeah.
sword and sorcery. So I thought, okay, I can take all these ideas and make it into a science fiction setting. So I made a whole game and sent it to the creator and said, look, I made this hack. If you like it, you can publish it, whatever, you can do whatever you want. And he told me, actually, I'm working exactly on the same thing with the same fucking name. And I was like, well, okay, so, well, here, you have my take on it. Take whatever you want. And after that, I thought, okay, this apparently was good enough for this guy to like it, and I don't know what he's going to do with it. But anyway, so I decided from that to start creating my own stuff.
Yeah.
Based on seeing that I could make a playable game.
That is really cool. So for the people who don't know, the second edition of Disciples is coming out soon, and I'm familiar with it. But can you tell our audience about like what it's like to play the game and the world? You said that the first game that you hacked was kind of classic fantasy, and Disciples is not quite that.
Yeah. I tried to move away from that.
Yeah. So what's Disciples like?
Yeah, so Disciples of Bone and Shadow, it's the setting is dark fantasy, I suppose you can call it like that. And it's set in a planet which is tidally locked. So that means it's always facing the same side. The sun is always hitting on the same side of the planet. I think they call it also eyeball planet. So you basically have just a fringe of the planet which is inhabitable, because it's in between the side of the planet that it's being constantly heated up by the sun and the frozen side, which is always in the shadow. So you just have a side, like a stretch of land which is inhabitable, which is called the Twilight, and it's in a way a post-apocalyptic fantasy game, I suppose, which I didn't realize myself until somebody told me. I realized, yeah, it's basically post-apocalyptic, because there was this great cataclysm which made the planet, it made it tidally locked, and right now it's just basically a desolated landscape with very sparse populated areas. And it's ruled mostly by these huge fortresses which dominate the landscape, which are the centers of power of the tyrants, which are like kind of demigods, servants of the primordial ones. Some of them conserve their humanity. You have like a semblance of civilization here and there. Those tyrants which haven't lost all their humanity, but most of them are just like forces of nature. They are unpredictable, and people live in a perennial state of fear. So that's the basic setting, and there's a lot of corruption. Magic corrupts. There's no metal. Most of the tools and weapons are made of just stone and bones, which is also funny. Somebody, after I made the game and all that, somebody came out and told me, oh, this reminds me to Dark Sun. And I said, yeah, fuck you, you are totally right. And I used to love Dark Sun, and I guess it was in the back of my mind, but I seriously did not realize I made a version of Dark Sun without intending to do so. So
no, I was really surprised to hear that you weren't quite conscious of that inspiration. Because when I was playing it, I was like, man, this I can like see the artwork in my head for Dark Sun, when I'm around the waste.
Completely not conscious of that until somebody mentioned it. And I had a moment of panic thinking, fuck, maybe this is too similar to Dark Sun, but it was like, okay, it's already out there. What can I do?
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, I guess it's not a bad inspiration.
No, not at all.
Dark Sun rules. I really like that setting.
Mm-hmm. So tell me what do you do in the game when you're playing it?
Yeah, so you start off by making a couple of characters. It's completely freeform creation. The character, you just distribute the points, and you have something called archetypes, which you can like try to match by how you spend your points. You can make it match your archetype, and that gives you certain advantages associated to the different archetypes. So you have I don't know if it's 4 or 5 right now, starting archetypes, which basically match the standard classes like healer, thief. But then you can evolve completely on your own direction, and right now you have over 20 archetypes, I think, in the basic game. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, and you do not have to follow the archetype at all. It's just reaching one of those archetypes is like a goal that you can set yourself, which will give you certain benefits. So we recommend starting with a couple of characters. Your party is for my 2 characters. You could go with more if you want, or 1 if you are a bit suicidal, because the game is a bit tough already.
It is, yeah.
You make your 2 characters, and you have a blank hex, and with the help of tables, you generate the different features and of terrain, and I don't know, the different encounters. You can find settlements or enemies, of course. And within all those things you will also find ruins, the aforementioned fortresses, which is like the ultimate threat a player can try to tackle. Basically, through gameplay, you generate the world, you generate the encounters, you have all the tables, you just roll on the tables, roll to see what happens. So you're constantly generating a new experience each time you play. It's everything randomly generated. So that's what keeps the game fresh. So, hopefully.
It does. It's when I read the book the first way through, I actually skipped a lot of things only because I wanted to, I didn't want to read every entry on the roll tables, because it's like, oh, this is meant to be like what draws me into the world. I want surprises when I find things.
Yeah, that's hopefully in the future, through more expansions and stuff, we will enrich the experience, because eventually you're going to face all the threats, and I mean, you're going to see the things that you already, I mean, it's a finite number of encounters, so it's not infinite. But I mean, I think it has a lot of variety, and so far I think people are having fun with it.
That's really cool. So if Dark Sun was kind of in the back of your head or subconsciously, what kind of influenced the world and everything consciously?
Yeah, so for me it was mostly Conan. I was trying to make a bit that savage, low fantasy, dark fantasy world. Conan with a bit of course, Lovecraft elements. You have the mythos elements. They're always in the back, which will be the primordial ones here in my game. And I don't know, it's just a very old school, maybe Dungeons and Dragons, but first editions, or I don't know, it's just trying to keep it very, very old school.
Right.
For the second edition, we expanded the rules. We made them a bit more complex. I guess now they are closer to the system you'll find in RuneQuest or Call of Cthulhu, or I mean, it's more a D100 system right now.
Yeah.
So that's the gameplay influences, I would say. But I don't know, thematically, mostly it will be Conan,
Mm-hmm.
Lovecraft, of course, Moorcock's books. I mean, Elric is, for me, it's one of the, it's just the most important fantasy book for me. Maybe for the others it will be Lord of the Rings. I don't know, how he broke the status quo of fantasy with Elric is just all the Eternal Champion in general. All the work of Moorcock will always influence my writing and creative side. I mean, I just love it.
That's really cool. So the announcement is that the pre-order for the second edition is coming August 23rd, which is tomorrow as we're filming this, and probably a few days ago as we're releasing it. So there'll be a link in the description to go and pre-order that. I'm really excited to get that in my hand. It's got new artwork, some new gameplay rules, and it's a lot of fun. I really think we managed to improve the game in all aspects. I mean, the first version of the game was very do-it-yourself because I didn't have that much means. I mean, I just paid for everything myself. I did all the writing myself. Even though I'm used to write stuff for my normal job, and the layout and all that, I did it myself, which is also, I've been working on layout since I'm 18, so that wasn't a problem. But it did definitely need an extra editing pass, which has been handled by interviewer right here. Yes.
Done an amazing job. I fucking love it. And you really refine the rules and everything, so it's perfect. That was really, really necessary. So that was handled perfectly. We added new artwork, like you said, completely new layout. And the key reason to making the second edition, aside from the fact that a lot of people were asking for it, it was since I started working on my next game, which I guess we'll touch on later. I was realizing that the system used in this second game, Seekers Beyond The Shroud, was all the rules and the gameplay systems were much better set up, and I don't know, much just simply better in a word. So I just decided that why not, moving forward, I could just take all those rules and apply them to Disciples. So that's what I did, and also moving forward, it's going to really help me know how to tackle future content, because if I have one rule set with Disciples and then a completely different rule set with Seekers, I lose my mind. I mean, I will have to be restarting when I want to make content for one game. I will have to refresh the rules. Even if it's my own game, I forget the rules. It's unavoidable. So like this, I have everything. The backbone is the same for both games, and hopefully for future games too. Because I think it's quite refined right now. It's a D100 system. It works perfectly. It's tried and tested. And moving forward, I think is the best decision. So we made those adjustments for the character creation, combat. The rest has remained the same. I mean, the dungeon generation, which will be the ruins and caves and all that remains the same. And I don't know, I think we really have the definitive edition right now.
Any other influences on Disciples of Bone and Shadow besides Conan? That's probably the primary one, but any like movies or music that influenced it? I guess there's Conan movies, but
music, definitely, I would have to say doom death bands like Disembowelment or Spectral Voice, or I mean this kind of very oppressive, slow, with a lot of reverb. I mean, it's really ambient, heavy music that I think it's really part of the DNA of the game. It's there as the backbone of the atmosphere. I wanted to try to put that oppressiveness from the music into the world, even though I haven't developed it as much as I want to. I mean, the lore is there in the basic game, but it's a bit maybe bare bones, because I try to make it like a easy game to get into, not with a world, original world, but not too heavy into the lore to overwhelm the new player. I try to make basically a simple game.
Gotcha.
So, but that's something I really want to expand on, because I see also that people are loving it. I got a lot of positive feedback about the world building and lore, so I really want to explore it. I have a lot of cool ideas on this for that. So that's something we'll expand in the future.
I'm really excited for that. Yeah, full disclosure, I am the one who, of course you know, but I am the one who edited the new edition. So I'm really familiar with it. And one of the things I really like about it is how, I mean, like, you've got world building through like item tables, through the encounter tables, the monster text descriptions, you kind of just infuse like the whole game with that
was
flavor.
Important for me to give a little bit, since I didn't want to give just like a wall of text. Okay, this is the world.
Right. Yeah.
And,
I can't stand
read
that.
it, and then you just see sterile items which maybe have some name related to it.
Yeah.
So I try to drop here and there in the descriptions of the spells, of the enemies. I try to, not heavily, I could have done a lot more of it, which I actually did in Seekers. I doubled down in lore there. But in this one, I try to just hint at it. So, so you have that backbone of world, you get into it unconsciously maybe. And then there's something that we'll be able to build upon hopefully in the future.
Cool. I'm really excited to get a look at Seekers, because there's from what I know, there's a playtest going on right now. And it's
going on for a month and a half, something like that, I think.
Okay, cool. So kind of nearing the end. What's the release window for Seekers?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, the play testing is going pretty well. We're in the last phases of it. I still have a couple of scenarios to write. I don't know. Hopefully by the end of the year we could have it out.
Man,
it's just also we had a couple of crazy ideas. We were discussing Matt and I yesterday, which I don't know we will do because maybe it's too crazy. So just keep adding to the possible release stuff. So if we would do everything we want, it's going to be very cool. But I don't know. Hopefully by the end of the year it will be out. Let's see.
That's super cool. Okay, what is Seekers? Because I know about as much of it as anyone else does.
Yeah, so the game is called Seekers Beyond The Shroud, and it's also a solo role-playing game. But it's based on modern-day London mostly, even though you travel around the world. It's mostly on the hub, to say, is in London. And it's a modern-day setting, occult game. With the goal is, well, basically you realize through some kind of traumatic experience that the world is more than you think it is, and you basically try to make a name for yourself and to grow in power by pacting with doing pacts with different entities, spirits, demons, angels, ghosts, what we call vestiges. And so you just basically explore this occult world, which is also controlled by different organizations. You can join different organizations, and you have this central hub, which is called the Omphalos, which is like the center of the occult world in London, and it's one of the centers in the whole planet, which will be like a bit of your typical MMO hub, where you go get quests, do a bit of crafting, get contacts and all that. Well, I try to give that feeling of MMO, but as a single player, in a single player experience. So, and it's all very modular, also very sandboxy. You do whatever you feel like it, and yeah, I don't know. It's an evolution from Seekers, I suppose. I mean, from Disciples. It's much more lore heavy, and it's the backbone of the game is definitely the lore and the ambience. I try to give it a horror touch, but it's maybe less horror than I would like to at the end. I mean, I started making it very horror and very otherworldly, and then maybe it ended up a tiny bit more combat oriented. which I suppose is inevitable when you don't have a person guiding the narrative.
Right, right.
It's difficult. It's a pitfall for solo role playing. I tend to rely maybe too heavily on combat as a main gameplay experience, and it's difficult to move from there. But well, there are other stuff to do as well. There's a lot of rituals, a lot of packs you have to research. You have alchemy. I mean, there's a lot of other gameplay elements. You have astrology system, which is key to. It's very important. As time passes, you will be in a specific day with a specific moon phase, which all that ties into the spirits. Because I try to make it's completely based on actual occult system. I mean, it's a very Solomonic way of understanding, and it's evocation, classic evocation magic. So I take a lot of influences from Solomonic texts and John Dee and all these classical occult writers. So there's a lot of research into these specific entities, all the angels and demons. I didn't pull out of anything from my ass. I mean, it's all real, or whatever you want to. I mean, it's all from real world sources. So I try to gamify all the process of being an adept of the occult, and what will be to invoke summon an entity and make a deal with it, and you get its powers, and then you go and face enemies because you're working for certain organizations. So I mean, I try to implement all that. I don't know if I'm achieving so far. I think people are enjoying it, but we'll see once it's up.
So it sounds from the little bit that I've heard from you just now about Seekers and what you said about cult, it sounds like they kind of share some DNA.
Yeah, definitely cult was a big influence, at least conceptually. Then it moved away. I mean, cult is really based on the Sephiroth, and it's very Gnostic. It's a very Gnostic understanding. I mean, way of understanding the world. This has more to do with the different astral planes. You have astral traveling. You can do missions in the physical world, but you can also do missions in the astral planes. So I don't know. It definitely has that influence, which is unavoidable because cult is an occult game.
Right. Yeah.
You have all that Gnostic, Kabbalistic basis of the game, and I touch upon a bit of that. I mean, it's unavoidable when you're dealing with occult themes. You are going to deal with Gnosticism and the demiurge and all the different Sephira. So yeah, I guess the two games touch because they have a bit common background. But yeah, definitely conceptually, cult was a big influence for sure.
Cool. What else was what other things does the game evoke in your head? Like what other media?
I don't know. I guess the Ninth Gate will be also a big film in the book. It was from the 90s with Johnny Depp. It's a guy who it's based on a Spanish book actually, but it's an awesome film. Cool. It's a guy who chases a book and goes to Toledo here in Spain. I don't know. So I try to get a bit of that feeling of chasing. Right,
or like around the world, place to place.
Yeah, and looking for secret knowledge and and improving your power and your status both in the organizational level of because you join different orders or cult orders, so you try to increase your power there, but also within the spiritual world, the more powerful you are, the more contact you have with spirits, you like bind them to them. You have different servitors. You can then actually even go into the astral and use those servitors. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the main influence, I would say, it's just the different occult media, films, books, mostly books.
And real world history as well.
Yeah. Real world occult literature. Yeah, that's the number one influence. I mean, I don't think I gamified it, of course. I mean, I took
Sure.
my creative license, but pretty much everything. You can take most of the names that I drop in the game and research them. Is okay. There's actually a real guy who existed. I mean, I try to ground it on our reality as much as I could.
Mm-hmm. Super
I think
cool.
that's interesting to expand our real world. It's always I always have an affinity towards those kind of stories that are based on our reality, but they have like a hidden layer behind the expand your horizon. So I try to do that with Seekers Beyond The Shroud.
Yeah, you're a hard worker then, because we've got the Disciples pre-order coming tomorrow, and Seekers coming out. Crossing my fingers with you for late this year, early next year.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right, that little time frame there.
Yeah,
super. Well,
and then after that, I already have a list of things I want to do with Disciples and Seekers also. So my goal will be maybe to alternate content releases between Disciples and Seekers.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have some other ideas in the back for other games.
Uh-huh.
So I think maybe I'm being a bit overambitious, and I'm definitely going to need help. Hint.
Okay.
So, but yeah, there's a lot of in the works. There's a lot of content coming your way.
That's super cool. Well, outside of your writing sphere, we're going to finish off by, I want to ask you, what kind of stuff are you, what's like the name of the game you're playing right now? Or what are you excited to buy, or what are you excited to read through? What kind of, what's in the RPG scene that's got you excited for the coming month or two?
Yeah, well, hard question, because as I said, I'm mostly into tabletop gaming right now.
Mm-hmm.
I was really eyeing Warcry from Games Workshop. I don't know if my gaming group, if you can call it like that, we're just 2-3 guys. I don't know if they will be into that, but yeah, it looks pretty fun. And then underground stuff, I'm really looking forward to getting my copy of the new Mothership, Pound of Flesh. Yeah, that looks killer. That looks amazing. So that one, if I can get my friends to start gaming again, role-playing game, I'm definitely running Mothership because it's really such a small book and so much atmosphere condensed in a few pages.
Absolutely.
I love it. That's really an inspiration. I wish someday I can make a game like that because that's really amazing. The design, it's perfect. I mean, everything about it is perfect. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting my copy of A Pound of Flesh, and I don't know. There's a lot of small games, but unfortunately, like I said, I'm mostly focused on wargaming and tabletop gaming right now. I'm really into the Fallout Wasteland Warfare game. So I like Fallout games, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but anything that has a solo twist, I'm into it. Just in case my friends don't like.
In case they have to drop out.
Yeah.
Man.
So yeah, I don't know if I'm that up to date with all that stuff. Unfortunately, it's just there's so much I can do. I mean, between work and writing, and then the little bit of time I have playing a bit of music, or I don't know. I'm not as into the RPG scene as I would like to.
Well, I'm glad that you're making games for people like you that they can play in their free time.
Yeah, hopefully I am. Hopefully people like it.
Well, you getting the second printing, you're getting some good feedback, some dedicated play testers.
Yeah. It looks like at least Disciples is fairly popular. So
well,
I'm very, very happy with it and very humble and grateful. So yeah.
So something that you brought up earlier was you're doing your releases through Exalted Funeral. How'd you get to know Matt and get him to like how did that meeting happen?
Yeah, so we know each other from before because of my day job. We just we came into contact because of my books, because of the kind of books I publish and all that. So yeah, we had that working relationship, and then I saw that he released Switchburner, and I was like, oh, so he's going to start releasing stuff, and by back then I was starting to write Disciples, which I initially intended to self-publish. But then I thought, okay, it doesn't hurt to ask. Maybe he's interested. So I sent it to him. He liked it. And well, I love how he works. He's amazingly hardworking. He's an amazing guy. And I think it shows. I mean, everybody's loving Exalted Funeral's work. He's growing like nuts.
Yeah.
I love to be part of it. So I'm very, very grateful to Matt and his team for accepting Disciples among his roster.
Yeah, you're up there with some other really cool games on the website.
Yeah,
they're among next to Mothership and everything, like you were saying.
Yeah, and the creative team over at the Discord channel. That's very. I don't know. It's scary to be around such amazingly creative and talented people. It's like, what the fuck am I doing here? I feel like an imposter because it's amazingly creative people. They've done amazing games, amazing releases, all of them. So to be there and listening to their creative processes and ideas is amazing. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to grow as a creator, as a writer.
There's a lot of people around on Exalted Funeral's Discord. And of course I'm biased because this is literally for Exalted Funeral, but there are a lot of people on there that are just making really cool things and ready to talk about the games going on right now. And I said to you earlier that it's so cool because they're just all so friendly. Like, they're easy to talk to. They're not like up on a pedestal.
So fucking helpful, all of them. I mean, instantly you need something, you ask and they are instantly there. I mean, like how I got the contact for the guy who made the character sheets for Disciples and Seekers and hopefully moving on everything. He's such an amazingly talented guy. So this guy, apparently he made a fan, I mean, his homebrew version of the character sheet for It's the Odd. And it's fucking awesome. He did a fantastic job. He's called Dave. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. Well, you can see it in Disciples. And anyway, so this guy, I just found his character sheet, and Fiona, well, famous Fiona for her work in almost every RPG right now, the editor per excellence. She's so fucking awesome person. And she said, okay, do you have this guy? Because I was asking about character sheets and who I could find out to help. Yeah. And she mentioned this guy. She showed me his work, and I said, okay, yeah, I want this guy. And immediately between her and Jared, I don't know. I mean, it was like magic. From not knowing the guy, not even them, to instantly localizing him and putting me into contact with them in 2 hours. It was like, how did you do that? I mean, it's like you just pulled him out of the air. It's like you knew him already. So, and like that for everything. I mean, I have some questions. They're there. Design questions. I mean, the whole team, they're just amazing.
It's an invaluable creative resource for running, writing, playing, all of it.
Yeah, everything. And that's just the creative side. And when we open the Discord server to the general public, and we have now there this core of gamers and dwellers in the Discord channel, and everybody's just awesome, great atmosphere, and it's fantastic. Very, very good experience.
Well, I think that's one of the note we're going to end on. Alex, thank you so much for doing this interview. It has been awesome talking to you.
It was a pleasure, and thank you very much for your fantastic questions and for having me here. Now, if I can, I would just like to thank the people from the Blackoath Entertainment Discord server, which are also very helpful, very nice. The people from the Exalted Funeral server, all of them, Matt, of course, you, and all the playtesters for Seekers. I want to send my thanks to all of you, because I couldn't be doing what I'm doing now without you. So thanks all.
And thank you for making games. Alex, we'll see you on the Exalted Funeral Discord server, and
Definitely.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, well, bye. Thanks again.